The world ended on a Saturday afternoon, smelling of lavender, detergent, and dust. We were doing something so devastatingly normal, clearing out my closet for the new season. Kyan was reaching for a stack of old sweaters when his knuckles brushed against a cardboard shoebox I'd stupidly, fatally, forgotten to throw away. The stalker evidence box. He pulled it out, a question forming on his lips, but it died when he lifted the lid. He didn't say a word. He just methodically removed the contents. First, the roll of unused duct tape. Then, the printouts of threatening emails I'd sent to myself from a burner account. And finally, he pulled out the third t-shirt, the one with the most dramatic bloodstain made from a sickeningly sweet mixture of corn syrup and red food dye. He held it by the corner, between his thumb and forefinger, the same way I'd seen him handle actual evidence bags. His professional instincts were at war with the look of a man whose heart was being methodically disassembled right in front of him. The air in our bedroom, a space that had felt like a sanctuary just minutes before, was suddenly thick and suffocating. My brain was a screaming engine, overheating and failing. 1,000 terrible scenarios flashed through my mind. Confess and beg, deny everything, feign a fainting spell. Every escape route was a dead end, blocked by the sheer, undeniable physical proof in his hands. But instead of tears or a confession, the ugliest, most self-destructive sentence I've ever uttered just slipped out. A venomous defense mechanism. Seriously, Kyan, the words were sharp, brittle. It took you this long to figure it out, some detective you are. It didn't start with a box of fake blood and lies. It started 3 months ago, with the smell of garlic and basil in our tiny apartment kitchen. A scene of such perfect domesticity, it felt like a fragile glass sculpture. Kyan was cooking, humming off-key to some indie band, and I was watching him, feeling a wave of contentment so pure it was terrifying. I was afraid to breathe, lest it shatter, because I knew the peace was temporary. Our relationship was, by all accounts, perfect. He was kind, steady, and had a calming presence that made the world feel less chaotic. But he was a detective, and his job was a constant, unpredictable third partner in our relationship. A partner that could whisk him away for days on end with nothing more than a cryptic text about a developing situation. Every time his work phone, the one with the jarring, impersonal ringtone, vibrated on the nightstand, my heart would seize. It was a Pavlovian response. The sound meant he was leaving. The sound meant I would be alone. Every time he left, every unanswered call, it was like a pickaxe chipping away at a fragile wall inside me. My dad hadn't had a work phone. He just had a packed suitcase and the quiet click of the front door locking behind him for the last time. One day he was there, making pancakes. The next, his side of the closet was empty. The silence he left behind became the soundtrack of my childhood, a constant, humming reminder that people, even the ones who are supposed to love you most, can simply vanish. I spent years convincing myself I was over it, that I was a functional, secure adult. But Kyan's job, with its sudden disappearances and inherent danger, was a constant, low-grade echo of that abandonment. I was terrified of that silence returning. The real panic set in on the couch, tangled up in a blanket, watching some dumb reality show. He turned to me during a commercial break, his expression serious but hopeful. "Hey, so, there's a supervising detective role opening up in Northwood." Northwood was 3 hours away. He spoke about it with a quiet pride, his eyes lit up with the possibility of a career he'd worked so hard for. He saw it as a future for us, a step up, a house with a yard. All I heard was the sound of a train pulling out of a station. All I could see was his closet, empty again. I smiled, told him how amazing that was, how proud I was. It felt like my mouth was forming words that belonged to someone else. The idea didn't arrive like a lightning bolt. It was a slow, creeping mold that grew in the dark corners of my mind on the nights he was gone. It started as a sick little fantasy. What if I wasn't safe here alone? I'd push the thought away, disgusted with myself. But it would come back stronger each time. He's a protector. It's in his DNA. It's his job. The logic was twisted, born of pure terror. If I were in danger, he wouldn't just want to stay, he would have to. The promotion, the distance, all of it would become secondary to my safety. He would move in. He would be here every night. the silence would be gone. I convinced myself it wasn't a lie. It was an insurance policy. A desperate, ugly, necessary act to secure a lifetime of his humming in my kitchen. My performance began subtly, a master class in manipulation I never knew I was capable of. I started with the small things, the kind of unsettling incidents that could be easily dismissed as paranoia, but would plant a persistent seed of concern in the mind of a man trained to see patterns. An anonymous, vaguely creepy comment on a 3-year-old Instagram photo. "You have a beautiful smile. It would be a shame if something made you stop smiling." I showed it to Kyan, letting my hand tremble just enough as I held out the phone. He held me, his arms a solid wall around me, and told me it was probably just some bot, some online weirdo. He was reassuring, logical. He showed me how to make my profile private, his brow furrowed with a protective concern that was like a drug. A week later, I escalated. In the pre-dawn gloom of my office parking garage, I took my own house key and dragged its jagged edge across the passenger side door of my car. The sound was sickening, a metallic scream in the silence. It felt like I was scarring my own skin. I called him, my voice a carefully constructed cocktail of fear and confusion. "I don't understand who would do this. It feels targeted." He was there in 20 minutes, foregoing his morning briefing. He took notes in his little black book. He talked to the apathetic building security guard. He treated it like a real case. He was so focused, so determined to protect me. That night, I fell asleep to the sound of his breathing, my head on his chest, feeling a grotesque mix of guilt and triumph. The positive reinforcement was a powerful, addictive cycle. Every fabricated threat brought him closer, made his presence more permanent. The anonymous emails were the next step. I spent a whole afternoon in a public library, the smell of old paper and dust filling my lungs, crafting them on a public computer. I studied true crime forums to get the language right, making them sound just unhinged enough. "I see you watering your plants on the balcony," one read. "I know you're alone most nights." I forwarded it to him with a single-word subject line. "Kyan." He started staying over most nights after that, leaving a toothbrush in my bathroom and a spare shirt in my drawer. Each item was a small victory. Then came the grand finale, the move that I knew would be the point of no return. The fake blood. I spent a whole afternoon in my kitchen, perfecting the recipe I found online. Corn syrup for viscosity, red food coloring for the arterial brightness, and a touch of cocoa powder for that authentic brownish coagulation of dried blood. It was sickeningly sweet. I splattered it on an old white t-shirt, imagining a struggle, a desperate fight. I rehearsed my panicked breathing in the mirror, my frantic sobs. That evening, as dusk settled, I placed the shirt near the dumpster behind my apartment building, a theatrical prop on a dark stage, and made the call. Someone was here, Kyan. I think he tried to get in. I found this outside. Oh God, Kyan, it looks like blood. The change in him was instantaneous. The calm, logical boyfriend was gone, replaced by Detective Kyan Morales. He arrived with his jaw set, his eyes scanning every shadow, every flicker of movement. He didn't hug me at first. He secured the scene. He put the shirt in an evidence bag he kept in his trunk. He spent the entire night with me, sitting on the edge of my bed while I pretended to sleep, his silhouette a sentinel against the blue glow of the streetlights. The next morning, over coffee he'd made, he told me he was moving his things in. "I'm not leaving you alone here, Lorelei, not until we find this guy." My plan had worked. Perfectly, I was safe. He was here. I was so consumed by the intoxicating relief of his constant presence that I managed to bury the truth. That the monster he was hunting, the one whose patterns he was trying to decipher, was me. Which brings us back to Saturday, the day of the reckoning. We were doing the closet purge, a mundane couple's activity that felt so beautifully, achingly normal. Kyan was laughing, holding up a hideous, sequined bridesmaid dress from my cousin's wedding. "Are you ever going to wear this again, or can it join the great fashion graveyard in the sky?" he teased, his smile reaching his eyes. I laughed with him, a genuine, uncomplicated sound, and for a moment I let myself believe in the lie. I imagined this was our real life, normal, happy, built on a foundation of something other than meticulously crafted deceit. That's when he reached for a stack of old sweaters on the top shelf, and his knuckles hit the cardboard shoebox. It made a hollow, damning sound. "What's this?" he asked casually, pulling it down. "Feels pretty light." My blood ran cold. My entire circulatory system felt like it had been flash frozen. It was the box, my prop box, the one I'd used to store the tools of my deception before I had a chance to dispose of them. In my bliss-induced amnesia, I had completely, catastrophically, forgotten it was there. "Oh, it's nothing," I said, my voice unnaturally high. "Just old craft supplies, from that pottery class I took." The lie was clumsy, pathetic, and I knew it the second it left my lips. But Kyan, ever the neat freak, was already opening it. "Maybe there's something in here we can use for..." His voice trailed off. The lid came off, and the silence that followed was the loudest sound I've ever heard. It was a vacuum that sucked all the air, all the warmth, all the laughter out of the room. He didn't gasp. He didn't yell. He just went still, a statue carved from sudden, horrifying understanding. One by one, he lifted the items out and placed them on our comforter, arranging them with the slow, deliberate precision of a bomb disposal expert. Each item landed on the soft fabric with a sickeningly soft thud. The third blood-stained shirt, identical in its syrupy sheen to the one in the police evidence locker. The roll of duct tape. The stack of a fur paper, printed with the same threatening phrases from the emails I'd received. And finally, tucked in the corner, the most damning piece of all. A cheap, black wig I'd bought from a Halloween store to disguise myself on the library's security camera. It was the final, irrefutable piece of the puzzle. He looked from the pathetic, theatrical collection on the bedspread to my face. His expression was no longer that of my boyfriend. It was the mask of professional detachment I'd seen him wear at crime scenes. I could practically see the gears turning behind his eyes, the detective's mind working in overdrive. He was connecting the dots, re-examining every piece of evidence from the past 3 months through this new, horrific lens. Every panicked phone call, every tearful embrace, every night he'd spent watching over me while I feigned sleep. It was all replaying in his mind, curdling from cherished acts of love into scenes from a sick, manipulative play. The trust wasn't just breaking, it was evaporating. I could see the love in his eyes being overwritten, pixel by pixel, with the cold, analytical gaze he reserved for suspects in an interrogation room. He was looking at a stranger, a manipulator, a criminal who had been sleeping in his bed. The man I loved was gone, and in his place was a detective who had just discovered the perpetrator of a crime he'd invested his entire heart in solving. And in that terrifying, crushing silence, my survival instincts kicked into their highest, most destructive gear. My brain chose to attack. It was a cornered animal's response, a snarl to mask the absolute terror. And that's when I said it. That's when I destroyed the last tiny fragment of what we had. Kyan didn't even flinch at my words. The insult, designed to wound him, to throw him off balance, seemed to slide right off him. He just looked at me, his eyes filled not with anger, but with a profound, weary disappointment that was 1,000 times worse. "You're right, Lorelei," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. "I'm not a good detective. A good detective would have seen this. A good detective wouldn't have let his feelings cloud his judgment." He picked up his phone from the nightstand. "But I was your boyfriend, and I trusted you." He didn't pack a bag. He didn't storm around the apartment. He moved with a quiet, methodical efficiency that was chilling. He started in the bathroom, gathering his toothbrush and razor. I followed him, a babbling, incoherent mess of apologies and excuses. "Kyan, please, I can explain. I was scared. I was scared of losing you." He stopped, turned to face me in the narrow hallway, and his gaze was so direct it felt like he was pinning me to the wall. "Scared of losing me. So you decided to manipulate me. To lie to the police, to lie to me. You didn't just lie, Lorelei. You built a cage for me out of your own fear, and you used my love for you as the bait. This isn't love, it's possession." He walked past me into the bedroom and pulled his duffel bag from the closet. The very same closet where our world had ended. He started putting his clothes inside. No anger, no throwing things, just neat, precise folds. The coldness of his actions was a stark contrast to my hysteria. I grabbed his arm, my nails digging into his bicep. Don't do this. We can fix this. I'll go to therapy, I'll do anything. He gently, but firmly removed my hand. There is no we to fix, he said, his voice flat, devoid of all the warmth it once held. The we you wanted was based on a lie. I don't even know who you are. He zipped the bag, walked to the front door, and put on his shoes. I made one last, desperate plea blocking his exit. Kyan, I love you. He looked at me one last time, and for a fleeting second, I saw a flicker of the man I loved, a flash of immense pain. I hope one day you learn what that word actually means, he said softly. Then he stepped around me and walked out. The click of the lock behind him was the final, definitive sound. My phone buzzed in my hand a minute later. A notification from Instagram. You have been blocked by Kyan Morales, then another from Facebook. He was erasing me, systematically, clinically. The silence I had fought so desperately to avoid had arrived, and it was absolute. The first few days were a blur of stale air and the hum of the refrigerator. I didn't leave the apartment. I didn't shower. I just existed in the wreckage, replaying that final scene in the closet over and over, each time hoping for a different outcome. On the fourth day, fueled by a desperate, illogical hope, I called Sasha. Sasha was our mutual friend, the one who had introduced us. If anyone could be a bridge back to him, it was her. I launched into my carefully edited version of the story, painting myself as a pathetic, lovesick fool who made a silly, terrible mistake. I cried. I told her how much I missed him, how empty the apartment felt. I waited for her to offer the soothing words I so desperately needed to hear. The silence on the other end of the line was long and heavy. When she finally spoke, her voice was stripped of its usual warmth. A silly mistake, Lorelei. A silly mistake is burning dinner or forgetting an anniversary. You didn't make a mistake. You orchestrated a months-long psychological campaign against a man who loved you. Her words were like a bucket of ice water. But I did it because I love him, I whispered, the excuse sounding flimsy even to my own ears. No, Sasha said, her voice firm. You did it because you're terrified of being alone. You didn't just lie to him as a boyfriend. You compromised him as a cop. You filed false reports. You wasted police time. You turned his professional instincts against him and made him feel like a fool in his own home. You didn't just break his heart, Lorelei. You violated his entire sense of reality. He's not just sad, he's humiliated. So no, I can't call him for you. And honestly, you need to leave him alone. She hung up. The dial tone felt like a verdict. That night, unable to sleep, I picked up the tablet we used to share for watching movies. His profile was still logged in. My fingers, acting of their own accord, opened the web browser. The search history was a series of daggers to my heart. Best jewelers in the city. How to secretly find out your girlfriend's ring size. And the most recent one, from the week before it all fell apart. A link to a local real estate agent, with listings for 2-bedroom houses in a quiet suburb, the kind of place you raise a family in. He wasn't planning on leaving for Northwood. He was planning on building a life with me, right here. The promotion was just a stepping stone, not an escape route. All my fear, all my scheming, it was all for nothing. I had set my own house on fire because I was afraid of the cold. The final scene of my pathetic tragedy is this. Me, huddled in the dark, my face illuminated by the glow of my phone. I've created a new, anonymous Instagram account with no followers and no posts. A ghost account. And from this digital purgatory, I watch him live. I don't look at his page. He's private now. I look at his sisters. I scroll endlessly, obsessively, through photos of family barbecues and birthday parties, searching for a glimpse of him in the background. A blurry arm, the back of his head, anything. I started this whole nightmare by pretending to be the one who was being watched, and now my entire existence has shrunk to just that, watching. I am the stalker now, trapped in a prison of my own making, with a life sentence of looking in from the outside.